right, everybody, here's time for something a little bit different.
Hey, y'all know who it is. It's your favorite concerned correspondent, the Gov here.
More votes can shift and transform our nation.
Governor feels pain. He's a human. Y'all know who it is and what it is. It's your favorite concerned correspondent here, the Gov, and I'm excited about this week's episode of the Concerned Citizen Podcast. I feel like this guest is the most like-spirited guest I've had the honor of interviewing for the show. They were running for county commissioner, some things happened, but I want y'all to listen to their interview, listen to their story, listen to their concerns. Make sure you like and subscribe, and remember the Concerned Citizen Podcast, where we speak freely. Let's go. Y'all know who it is and what it is. It's your favorite concerned correspondent, the Gov here. And I have none other than Jax for District 5 County Commissioner. Did I say that right? District 5?
That's right, El Paso County.
El Paso County. And we mean El Paso, Colorado, not El Paso, Texas.
Yeah.
But we got El Paso in the building. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. It's an honor to have you here.
Likewise, Gov. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful opportunity.
Now, as we do with everyone, Jax for District 5 Colorado Commissioner, County Commissioner. Yes. I'm going to get it right before the end of the night.
It's a mouthful. Don't worry.
But they'll hear it. They'll get the point. We ask everybody, if the listener or viewer couldn't see you, how would you describe yourself to them? And this could be just your vibe,
right,
or your physical and your vibe. How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I really liked that question. It made me think of like accessibility, right? Because like not everybody can see, and who you are is more than what you see,
Correct.
Right? So for me, I hope how I would describe myself is just an open and warm person. You know, I think when people see me, here's this question also made me think of this. People are like, "What are you?"
What did I do?
Oh, it's an interesting icebreaker. What are you? So yeah, what do people mean when they say that? But how I interpret that is, you know, my features, I would say, like, I have a light-skinned privilege, and as a Chicana, meaning I honor my Mexican American heritage, my indigenous heritage. I even have some ancestors who left Japan and came over to Mexico, interestingly. So with that kind of mixed heritage, I think people end up kind of wondering, what am I, right? And so I try not to feel any type of way about that, other than like, hey, I'm glad people are curious about me. Like, thank you for thinking of me. And so when I answer that question, I let them know that I pick the box of Chicana because some of what we talked about, race is a construct, like the word Latino is a made-up box, and in my case, Chicana is the identity box and label that I sit with to recognize my mixed heritage and, you know, my political activism. So if someone saw me, they would probably notice all my buttons and patches that have political slogans on them that say, like, "Together we rise," and my commitment to just progressive causes and things that matter, like abolishing ICE. So if people see me, I bet they probably see that. And that probably says a lot right there.
Yeah, and I just want to say for the record, they have a smile that can brighten up a room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My mama says, and one of my godmothers, the dimples are angel kisses.
Well, you were kissed by angels.
Blessed. I'm blessed.
Now, if you could think back to when you were a child, is there something that you may have seen or something that you may have went through that help shape how you see things or perceive reality today?
Yes, and let me just say, like, mad props to the questions again. I was saying I love being a deep thinker, so it took me there. And, you know, like, everyone should recognize you have an inner child, and what happened to you when you were, you know, your brain was developing matters. And so for me, when I read this question, one of the first things I thought of, I think I was probably like in second grade, so that makes me like not even 8 years old, right? Maybe like 6 or 7. And my background, one of my most significant caregivers is my maternal grandmother, who was Carmen Unsueta. And she was Spanish monolingual, meaning she did not speak English. And her husband, Jesus Unsueta, also Spanish monolingual. And my grandmother was a U.S. citizen who was born in California, but they took her back to Mexico like shortly after, and so she really didn't grow up like in the United States culture. And my grandfather, her husband, later became like a naturalized U.S. citizen, so very rooted in Mexico. And then they came eventually to El Paso, Texas, and then I was born years later, and they were a significant source of like love, care, and nurturing for me.
Right. And
they came to pick me up from school one day, and they only spoke in Spanish, right? And so I remember, and obviously that was more than like 30 years ago now, right? But what I remember is being like a little bit embarrassed and a little bit even maybe some shame, because the little kids, I guess my peers who were there, and right, like I wasn't in like a dual language school or anything. This is an English speaking place, right? Even though it was El Paso, Texas, the kids, like, I felt like they were judging my grandparents. And to this day, I don't know now, but I think I got a sense that one of them was like kind of maliciously laughing at my grandma for not speaking English. And so I went over and I kicked him. I do not condone violence. I will say that I think that memory came up with your question because, as I mentioned, it's a little bit a mix of like who I am, and also I do think that perspective informed, you know, how I view the world as I grow up, even how I view it today. And so a little bit of who I am is when I see injustice, I can't turn the other way. And to me, I think in that moment, I was like, you're not gonna, you know, laugh at my grandma because she don't speak English. Shame on you, right? And then also shame on you for shaming me, like, you know, making me feel ashamed about that. Like, I'm proud to be who I am, and I'm proud of my grandparents. And now
your language.
Yeah, and being, like, it's a gift to be a bilingual person, right? And they gave me that gift. And so I think how that informed my perspective as I grew up is, especially being from El Paso, Texas, you know, human beings tend to other people, each other, right? And where I'm from on, you know, the frontera, the borderlands, as I grew up, I started to realize where my hometown, where I don't know, I'm like a third, fourth generation El Paso, Texas person. And so I started to realize where I'm from is like a political football that a lot of times people will use it to talk about headlines and stuff and don't really give a shit about the people that live there and function in the poverty that you often find in border towns and the hard scrabble life there. And so as I grew up, just realizing that othering of even me, because I'm a, you know, Mexican American with some mixed heritage, and even around that age, I think if you've traveled throughout Texas, you know, starting to understand, hey, why do I always have to stop at these like military as a kid, right? They look like soldiers, the border patrol. Why do I have to stop? And they always ask me if I'm a U.S. citizen. Like, I was born here. And yet, if you live in the borderlands, no matter where you go, you're traveling in a car to get out of the borderlands. CBP has like a 100-mile zone where they have those checkpoints. So later on, as I grew up, that was kind of a point of resentment. Like, screw you guys. I'm an American too, and every time I leave my hometown in my car, you're gonna ask me if I'm American just because of where I was born. Like, F that. So,
but they asked me if I was American.
Yeah. Oh, they're gonna ask everyone. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mostly everyone.
That. So you're the first person I've had the honor of interviewing from the border. And just to hear you describe it in the terms, the borderlands, and
it's a unique place.
It is. I visited there one time, and what I found unique, and this might sound corny.
Which part? Was it El Paso?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of traffic goes through there. Yeah.
One, there was a cool little diner I went to, but two, I was taken up upon a mountain.
Yes, the Franklin Mountains on the Weiler Sky Tram, I think it's called, something like that.
Yeah, we drove up.
Oh, Trans Mountain then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It was Trans Mountain or like Sunset Road. One of those two.
I was a little stoned.
Then it was beautiful. Extra beautiful, wasn't it?
It was extra beautiful. But what I noticed, we went up at night, was the different lights. Like across the border, the lights are different than over here. And for some reason, that stood out to me.
We had a joke in El Paso because my generation, I graduated, gonna date myself, but 2005. And I was really the last generation of El Pasoans who could really just safely cross what I call an imaginary line. Like that's, the Rio Grande is an imaginary line, right? And it's also a river. But shortly, I think after my graduating class, where generations of El Pasoans had grown up easily crossing to Ciudad Juarez, a whole other country, right? International boundary, to go to the clubs, to drink, to party. And we had a joke, which is where I was going with the mountain, was, yo, if you ever get trashed in Juarez, just look for the star on the mountain and you'll know how to get back home. Because El Paso has, you probably saw the star on the mountain. And so I did not know how beautifully unique and how much where I'm from shaped who I am until I moved away. That's kind of the irony of it, right?
But that's what happens when you move away. You can begin to appreciate the difference in where you're from.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad that you brought that up, because you reminded us of a time that people may find so hard to believe, where people just said, hey, I'm going to go across the border.
That was generationally, right? Like my parents and their parents grew up freely crossing the, we call them puentes, bridges, right? And like there's different kinds of bridges. There's the free bridge, there's the bridge that you can drive across, and like that's why I call it an imaginary line, because it's a political jurisdiction, international boundary, and also it's a line that human beings decided to draw, right? But the communities that have been there for generations have always been intertwined. And I think, look, I'm going to show you, and we'll describe this for the listeners, but here's my patch for Two Nations, One Heartbeat. It says Juarez and El Paso, Texas, and you see the star on the mountain, and this X sculpture is in Ciudad Juarez. And this was produced in the aftermath of what I might cry a little bit, but it definitely impacted me. And like back to the question of, growing up, what impacted you, where you're from impacts you, was, in 2019, El Paso became the site of the worst massacre, white supremacist massacre of Latinos in American history, with a shooting at Walmart, and that was August 3, 2019. And for this community, that day fucking sucked, because not only was that happening in my hometown, but it was the day that Devon Bailey was shot and killed by CSPD. Thank you. And I remember hurting, like, in different places, right? Because Colorado Springs is like really my adopted home now. I've been here 10 years, and obviously like my ancestors are buried back in El Paso, Texas, and for two places that I love in the same day to go through that was really impactful.
I can only say that for the listener and for those that come in the future, like that just represents the state of like America. That
yeah, there's some pain we're dealing with.
Yeah,
some pain.
So we all have. What's unfortunate is we all have stories, right? Which is really sad. Yeah. For those that want to understand why this is so important to people like us, then I definitely have to make a cheap plug on my book, Manifestations of the 21st Century, Birth of the White Man, because you have to ask the question, what is a white man to fundamentally be able to grasp why this behavior is acceptable, because it's just a part of fear.
When I think of both of those situations, right, to me, I would agree with the assessment that I know, in addition to what I see as hate, right, like fear, was certainly a factor in the person who targeted my hometown, from what I understand. You know, this weird shit that's like the Great Replacement theory, and, you know, to your point, kind of what we have tolerated, not all of us, right, but I think America has a lot more work to do, and I'm at least glad to be a part of the generation of recognizing, look, white supremacy was baked into this thing, and until we start really getting at the meat of that, we're still gonna have these kinds of pains.
With that being said, as you have transitioned from childhood to where you are now, have you ever wrestled with homelessness or being with living in a car or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and I am blessed to say, you know, maybe I've had some trouble paying the rent. I've been behind on my mortgage, but thankfully I have not have the lived experience of what it is to be just totally unresourced, right? And I have to say that's because I have levels of privilege, right? Like, I have a family that can be part of my safety net and has been when I needed them to be, right? Like, I'm mostly able-bodied, so I can go make a paycheck to pay that mortgage, and so on and so forth. And so I have not, and I don't think there's anything that is equivalent to listening to the people with the lived experience when we talk about what it is like to be homeless, or like, you know, underhoused, like couch surfing or living out of your car, and living in a community where, you know, the city council just passed what we could consider a problematic ban on car camping, where, you know, I understand that people have concerns about their neighborhoods and their business, and also if you don't tackle the root causes of these issues, you're really just putting a not helpful band-aid on it for only some of the people, and probably not helping the most vulnerable people who are part of this, right?
Keep creating a situation where you just don't have to see it, so you can act like it's not there. Now, as an adult, what have you seen or maybe experienced that really shapes you now, or even one of the things that may have motivated you to want to run for county commissioner here in District 5?
I love this question. Well, I would say that Colorado Springs has been a really important character building place for me. And I say that with a cheeky smile. We're going to get into why. And also, it's been a beautiful place to find community, like grow my community beyond, like, being from Texas and the people who I grew to love there, right? Like, the beautiful thing about a heart is, like, there's no limit for love. Your heart will just grow to accommodate the love that you can experience. And so that's been a wonderful part of living here. And also, the character building piece of things is I came to Colorado very naively. Like, I'll call myself ignorant on it, is I had grown up, as I mentioned, generationally on the borderlands where it's like 90+% Latino, right? Like, I'm just another brown person, and it kind of, you would blend in, right? And I thought coming to Colorado, I would be like, all right, well, I'm gonna be the token Latina, so maybe I can make this work somehow. And was very soon after that confronted, and I think I was really naive about that, and confronted with like microaggressions that I really hadn't experienced before, because where I'm from, people don't really have trouble saying argumentares un sueta, right? Like, it's not uncommon to have one last name with two Z's. But when I got to Colorado, people were like, nice people, wonderful people, I knew, right? But they were also like, which I consider a microaggression, well, I'm not even going to say your name because, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, you will say, like, Polish and Russian names that are hard, but you see that my name has two Z's and it's mostly phonetic, and you're like, I'm
not even going to put forth the effort.
Precisely. And that type of element, like I said, I was naive about it, hadn't really encountered it before, and then I encountered the character building that was quite different in a way where I'm from, because, and again, my opinion, speaking for myself, my lived experience, is that Texas has a systemic problem with white supremacy. And sadly, since I have left, now going on 10 years, more and more I am grateful, because the quality of life in my eyes continues to be diminishing in places like Texas because of these systemic inequity issues. And so in Texas, to me, like, the people who are racist there are like racist to your face, is how I feel. Yes. You agree?
Yes.
You are a traveler,
yes.
And therefore you have experienced this. And so in some ways, I almost, like, that's what I grew with. And I wouldn't say I experienced much racism where I'm from. I would say, like, El Paso, because it's, like, mostly brown. But I would say going to other places in Texas, right? And kind of getting this sense of the white supremacy, frankly, and the inequity and the power dynamics, right? And then I came to Colorado, where it's like, ooh, blue trifecta, all this stuff. But then you go beneath the surface, and here I would say that people who are racist or bigoted, they like to call themselves colorblind.
Yes.
And I
don't see color.
Don't see color. It was like, you don't see me, right? And like, do you understand? And so I, again, almost, it's like a preference, is like, I didn't know I would prefer being like hated to my face than behind my back. Yeah. Because in this community, there were two big moments for me where essentially I was criminalized. I was attacked for straight up saying white supremacy is domestic terrorism. And I was shocked at the consequences that I had to pay. One of those settings was in my HOA, where I was trying to protect us from a predatory property manager. And I brought up the fact that actually, if you know the histories of HOA, they were created to keep black and brown people out of neighborhood. I brought that up and was accused of then being racist against white people. Sure. Yes. So, and that got incredibly out of hand. It turned out that this property manager essentially had a scam of getting insurance payouts where he would attack people like me and bring us to court with frivolous lawsuits, and it would never get past the mediation stage because he knew that he could get them to cut a check if it goes to mediation. And so I got some media attention around it when the Indie, our independent publication, was still around, and then more people reached out to me, and that's how I was able to put together that, oh, this guy has a pattern of doing this to get payouts. And so, I shit you not, I later heard this guy finally went away, and in a sense I sort of beat him. They got bought out by a giant corporation, if you can call that a win. He absconded to Colombia and like doesn't even live stateside anymore and is a super shady dude. And that started to teach me, and I will tell you this, at the time I worked for the US Senate, and he found out where I worked. He had been like kind of stalking me as the property manager, and the all-white HOA board thought that I was racist because I just pointed out some things about race and inequity. And so he ended up calling my office and complaining about me, and thankfully my office kind of clocked to where they were dealing with, and it was like a MAGA person. He discovered that I was working for a Democrat and he was a Donald Trump lover. So then it just kind of escalated, right? And both of us were basic. Are we doing F word on this? Do we bleep it?
You know.
Okay. So we were when I discovered that he's a little Donald Trump 2.0 on my doorstep, and when he discovered I'm a little AOC, but I'm a Mexicana, not Puerto Rican, we were both like, fuck you, right? And so he did not realize I was the 1 in 100 who would fight back, and I'm really proud of that. And then the other moment was CSPD realizing that I'm the 1 in 100 who will fight back, because the other character building moment here, being criminalized for saying things like Black Lives Matter, housing is a human right, and white supremacy is domestic terrorism.
Which it is.
Yes, that got me caught up with CSPD because I had participated in protest activity that was being organized by a local kind of political nonprofit here, and then my participation, they used that to falsely accuse me of assaulting a cop, right? Which I'd never been to jail before. So 0 to 100. Yeah, 2nd degree felony, aggravated attempted assault. And they use that as a means to go fishing with all my personal data, which, if you know now, we all live in the digital land. That's your entire life. And so as things progressed, thankfully, I went through the system, beat my charge, and unfortunately, like many, accepted a plea deal because my criminal attorney was like, I have to advise you that if you take this to trial, you are then facing the risk of a felony. And then because I wouldn't accept plea deals at first, they stacked a charge on me.
Of course.
Yes, we know they do this in these systems.
Put fear in your heart.
Yes.
Shell out some more money.
Yes, it was also more money to go to that trial. Yep. And so thankfully I passed through like my own prosecution, right? And then I felt extremely damaged, honestly. That was a moment that completely changed my entire view on the world. Like I said, I'd never been in jail before, and that was the moment that I became completely disgusted and understood more fully what the prison industrial complex is and why these systems are not set up to help people. They disappear human beings, not social problems. And I became an entirely different person. It was kind of like, I was like, I know too much now. Like, you've stepped through the looking glass. Like, I can never turn back. And
you had your Malcolm X moment.
I did, bro, because I'm telling you, I was sitting there, you know, in holding in my orange jumpsuit, which I later figured out, oh, I know what the orange means now. And I was like, okay, I had to tap in. I was fucking scared. Like, I didn't know if I was gonna get out. Like, is anyone gonna know I'm in here, right? All these things. And I remember sitting deep and taking a moment to center and thinking about the people who had fought for civil rights and been there before me, and all the protesters who had been taken to jail simply for standing up for what's right. And that helped.
found strength in the struggle. And as I would tell people moving forward, there's a quote. It's in one of my books. You should check it out. But the quote is, it's from Martin Luther King, and he says, "Every time I go to jail, I just use it as a chance to catch up on my reading."
Yep.
And so I will go on the record and say this. If the people that are, especially people of color, if you have Caucasian Americans talking on your behalf or wanting to fight or stand up on your behalf, if they're not willing to go to jail, if they don't have if they are not willing to put on an orange jumpsuit and have some points deducted from their credit score, then it's talk. Because we have a different experience, and that experience, like, they're the code breaker for that experience. They weren't, the system wasn't made for them. The system was made for people like us. So if they're willing to, you know, put on the orange jumpsuit like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or anybody else for the revolution, we'd be gladly appreciated. That's just my sidebar.
Truly and deeply. I support it. +1 on that. So very true.
Because people will put, I notice this as people are putting batteries in people's backs to fight for their cause. And it's all good to fight for your cause when you're on social media, you're on the streets, or you even might feel good if you get in a little ruffle and tuffle. But the reality is, like, if you're not willing to go behind them bars for your cause, then
then where are you at? Where are you at?
Because you have a fear, but I just see other people are going to those places for the cause. And so that's
well, and it's so, no, it's real, and it's so interesting too, because, like, I didn't pick that, but I made sure to fucking meet the moment. And this is this is why it was such a character building moment too, because, like, I was devastated. Like, the things that these folks were saying about me, right? Like, I'm a domestic terrorist. The property management guy, he sent out a letter to all my neighborhoods calling me racist and sexist against white men, that I had been making my neighborhood an unsafe place for white men. This is in writing and going to all my neighbors, right? And then the thing with CSPD happens, and they come to my house and they make it a show, right? This was all about the message. They knew that they weren't going to get the charges about me. This was about the power that they have always had from the beginning, the power of the accusation. And unfortunately, it took taking it on the chin like this to actually realize my power. Like, it wasn't until combining all these things and even other people, you know, reflecting on it with me, was like, oh, they're, like, worried I'm powerful. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just like a squeaky wheel trying to protect my community from a predatory property manager. And the thing with the police, that was 0.3 seconds of my life where I had a reaction that I turned around, I saw them dogpiling someone, and so I was like, you fucking coming for me? Like, what the fuck? It wasn't a thinking, it wasn't anything but a reaction to seeing CSPD abuse my community. And I'm proud that my reaction was to stand my ground and not turn away.
Well, I am just so thankful you have a soft voice and a beautiful smile, because if you say it too loud and too much bass, somebody could be afraid.
Oh, they already told me I made them fear for their lives, right?
And when they become fearful
Yes.
of their lives,
you pay the price. That's why white supremacy is deadly, right? And so, like, when we were reading what the cops, like, wrote about me, right? And they made just the most ludicrous arguments. Now, one of the things they wrote, right, they're coming to arrest me, right? So they're writing all this down. And they literally tried to make this argument, dude. They said, so it was really scary because the cops were there, like, in full riot gear. Like, they had, like, ARs. And I was like, those are things I'm used to, like, on the borderlands from the military, not my local cops. And it was just a bad, hyped vibe from them from the beginning, right? And so when it was already, like, filled with tension, and you could kind of tell, like, I think with reflection, it's like kind of like they were baiting us, right? And using any little thing. And in my case, I reacted, my bike fell, it fell near him, it didn't touch him. And they wrote to come get me. They said, well, if it had touched him, like, he was in full riot gear, and falling while in his full riot gear could have actually hurt him. It was like, wait, what? All this padding and protection from so-called riots, and if this man trips in his gear, he's also gonna get hurt. Okay. The white male victim. And that's another thing. They were like, they wrote in these documents, and this is why the ACLU is representing me, because they prosecuted me for my speech. I had tweeted that white supremacy is domestic terrorism, and the cop coming after me wrote that because I tweeted that I hate white people, that is wrong and a lie and couldn't be farther from the truth. And also it explains like why they have this crazy mentality in writing things up, right? Because the truth is, he was in full riot gear. I could not tell his race in 0.3 seconds. So, bro, you are like drawing really far-fetched conclusions here.
Well, to bring all of it full circle and why it means something to me and why your story earlier, I really gave a pause. In South Carolina, there was a gentleman, Mr. Walton, who was approached by a police officer, and he had a warrant for child support. So he ran. The police officer shot him in the back.
Just like Devon Bailey.
Killed him. Walked up to him, dropped another firearm beside him, wrote it up, and was clear until a video came out.
Right.
And even still, there was workings with the DA and the judge for him to only get 3 years. It was
disgusting.
It was a travesty. He ended up getting 20. They cut it to 10. They're still trying to get him out. But the fact of the matter is, the way that they write up the stories, it makes you just question everything when you start to see and hear real life experiences.
Truly. And you know what, Gov? Now it's on a macro level because ICE has come into play, and some people are trying to say, oh, ICE and local PD are different. No, they are not.
No.
And now that, to your point, when people are finally ready, the majority of Americans understand, yeah, we gotta abolish ICE. And why? Because we saw 2 white Americans, and they were allies, they were out there, they were doing it for their community, and we saw the video of ICE committing those extrajudicial executions. How different would it be if we didn't have the video of the murders of Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Well, you know, because you were accused of being a terrorist,
Yes.
and she was accused, and he was
That's their go-to. It's a lie, and that's where, for me, trying to step into leadership, be the change you want to see in the world, lead by example. And so I am also stepping into this office motivated by a lot of that character building experience and hardship. And also, I want to, as much as I can, affect positive change and contribute to whatever level I can, being someone trusted in the community in a position of leadership. And like, my supporters are amazing. One of them has told me, which it's amazing, but also it troubles me when my supporter, who knows all of us in this race well, says, look, I support you because I think you're the only one who I've never had to question whether or not you're lying to me. And I'm like, I love that you know me, and you know honesty is my value, and I'm impeccable with my words. And also, it really bothers me that we have such a low bar for people who are running for office or positions of responsibility,
Well, I mean, as above, so below. I mean, it starts from what the American people have asked for in politics, and this is the show that
this is why I argue that apathy gets you nowhere, because I can guarantee you that if you are not participating, you're not going to see what you want because you ain't here trying to work for it.
Now, with all of your combined experiences and with your ambition to become county commissioner here in District 5, what, if you could narrow it down, would be some of your top concerns? Top 3.
Absolutely. This question always comes up, right, when you're running for office, because people want to know, your priorities, your campaign pillars, we call them. And I also like to point out that, when you're considering who you're going to vote for, it is an assessment of who aligns as much as possible, but don't expect 100%, right? And also, I think it's important to people that for where I'm at as a leader is you do have to have certain priorities, because if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority. And this is a challenge of leadership, right? Balancing those realities. And so for me, where we stand, because I say we because I'm not the only one on this campaign and I couldn't do this without my supporters. This goes back to what I mentioned earlier, where if you're going to ask for this responsibility, you should be interfacing with your constituents so you know what their lived experience is, so you can be a competent, policy maker. And so for me, in talking to people, the big 3 are the spectrum of the housing crisis, because the county commission can actually have has a broad scope and actually have some role in addressing what I call the end of the spectrum, right, which is for unhoused folks. Like, we can't leave our vulnerable neighbors without resources. And then there's renters' rights and what we can be doing to protect renters and lending more balance to that power dynamic. And then finally, there's even the home ownership spectrum, where one of the programs I support, it exists. I wasn't able to get it. It wasn't available yet in 2019 when I became a property owner, and I think others should have it, and we should possibly expand it on the homeowner end of it, is down payment assistance. I'm big on owning is an asset, and there's argument around, well, maybe it's cheaper to rent in some ways, right? Well, home ownership, though, is one of the most accessible ways to build generational wealth. Right. So I believe we have to give some love to that too, policy wise. And so that's where, as a leader, I try to rock a balance of communicating about these dense subjects with kind of compartmentalizing them, because I worry about, we have this bumper sticker mentality, I feel like, in our discourse right now, because we have short attention spans, we scroll and scroll and scroll. And so striking the balance between, yes, being educational and informative and also reaching people, right? So housing, that's a big one. And then the next one is community safety. And I deliberately use community safety because, to me, public safety tends to mean we're excluding the greater community and we're actually just listening to law enforcement. So community safety to me includes addressing root causes of crimes, and that's pretty extensive, right? And community safety for the county commission also has an intersection, which this is why my heart is in this as well, is that justice piece, that legal system piece that, we've touched on. My experience is both the county sheriff and the county's district attorney are elected positions.
Correct.
And so on the commission, as other elected officials, we can function as some sort of oversight, kind of checks and balance. Do they have their own budgets? Yes. And will they do some of their own policy setting within those agencies? Yes. And also, they still go before the county commission and have to be accountable and talk about what their agencies are doing. So I'm really excited to have those relationships for accountability.
And difficult dialogue and holding them accountable. Okay.
Yes, I'm asking for people to trust me with the responsibility, because I have somewhat of a record of it at this point, is having those difficult conversations, because how can we move forward to thrive as a community together if we're not talking and addressing the, elephant in the room, so to speak.
So we have housing, community safety.
One more.
Yeah,
because people like it in threes.
I love
and I
threes.
do too. Three's a magic number.
It is.
So the third one that is very much a part of the county scope is public health. And so I want to continue to champion public health here locally. That's our responsibility, and that a lot of folks may not be familiar that Medicaid and how that program runs in our county is actually under the purview of the county, and therefore the county commission there's a liaison that gets assigned, and the county commission should be engaging with that, public benefit, social safety net kind of program. And also the foster care system falls under the county's jurisdiction, and as well consider, a big thing that I still think is worth pointing out is we all saw the county health department get extra attention because of the workload that they faced during the pandemic, right? And so that kind of helped people understand, like, oh, these folks are vital to our well-being in the community. And so that umbrella is a broad spectrum of what is well-being in the community, which to me, even extends to considerations around what are we doing regarding green energy, because how our environment is impacted also affects our health, right? So,
all right. The government is going to come after us. You're talking about green and...
no, you're... I mean, in the Trump administration, you don't know what happens next.
Well, we're ready for the knock on the door. We've all been there. My wife knows how to put money
done
on...
that?
Yeah, she knows how to put money on the books. We'll go to the space table and talk some crap. But no, seriously, I think that it's important because we only see the big headlines, but I know here in Colorado there are concerns around small, like, measles outbreaks, and so
it's happening. We had...
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. No, this should not be happening. We had... It's sad, right? Like, we in December, a high school student in the Denver area died, I think from the flu, and it has to do with them, not being vaccinated. And our state health department does track it somewhat. And so, as you were mentioning, now we're seeing measles become a problem, and now it's become a problem across the entire United States. And that matters, especially I have loved ones who are immune compromised, especially my mom. She's a chronic illness warrior, and so when I see these issues popping up, this is why I will put my skin in the game to protect my mom in this community, because these things don't have to happen.
No, they don't. And actually, the reason why I brought it up is because as a candidate, it's good to hear that you're informed, and that even if it's not the major sphere in your, or like the major thing that you can do, you know that there is something that you can do, and you're looking forward to being able to put forth a solution. And that's important, because we need people in power that reflect the interests of the people, and I think you
representation, right? No representation without taxation, right? I think is that, yeah. And so thank you for recognizing that, because that's a huge part of why I'm running. I'm just sick of seeing our county commission hear about these issues from constituents and refuse to face reality. That is not okay.
No,
and I want to be at least one voice on the county commission who is doing more. And look, I don't have any delusions that it's gonna be a hard job potentially to be one Democrat with 4 Republicans. And also, guess what? We have to live in the real world as Democrats and Republicans. And guess what? Also, unaffiliated are the biggest group of voters anyway. So this DNR thing, in a lot of ways, can be a distraction. And that's what I try to remind people too, that, you know, make sure the words and actions are adding up. And in my case, I'm very proud to have a record that I think people can look at and see that. And it's not okay where we have officials just kind of washing their hands of it, and about the housing crisis say, well, oh, that's a national issue, that's a state issue. Well, what the hell can you do as the county commission? Like, I'm not saying you can solve it, but what can you do, right?
And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that say, hey, I can find a way to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were called to fight and die for something that was outside of your family,
yeah,
excuse me, what would it be?
Yeah, I really liked that question because I was like, I feel melodramatic, but like justice, like it feels overly broad, and yet that was, you know, one of the first things that came to mind, because let me tell you this. I started doing like political work in earnest, like knocking on strangers' doors, being in places where people would be annoyed because I want to talk about voting, right? Like 10 years ago, right? 2016. And I remember sitting on the porch with my dad, and obviously a lot has happened that unfortunately kind of reinforces this, we'll say fear or potential outcome is, because I actually don't fear it, which sounds, I refer to myself affectionately as dumb brave, which is a great trait for what I work on. But I sat with my dad and I was like, Dad, we were kind of getting used to El Paso County here, because my parental unit and sibling, they moved to El Paso County like about 2 years before me, and I came here and I was like, ooh, I like it, it's beautiful, and cannabis, hello. So quality of life improved here from Texas, and so we knew that it was kind of rough here, and that like gun-toting Republicans and maybe some folks who might get violent, like the reputation, frankly, that unfortunately Colorado Springs has earned for itself, because since then things like Club Q have happened, and at the time more recently was the Planned Parenthood shooting, right? Mm-hmm. And there's other incidents of violence, gun violence here that we know happen. And so I don't really know why. I think it came up because I believe her name is Heather Meyer. She was killed in Charlottesville, I believe, back during the protesting. Yes. Do you remember?
Yes. Was she the lady that was hit by the car?
Yes, I believe so. And I think that was just like on my mind, and I don't know if the timeline is aligned, but it's just kind of what I remember, and I share it because what would you die for? I felt that it was really important after that to tell my dad that if someone shoots me because I'm wearing an Obama hat and I knocked on their door, will you please tell everyone that I knew that and I did this anyway? And I waited years to tell my mom that story because now I'm running for public office, right? And now we live in a world where in this country, within the last year, people have gone to the homes of Democratic elected officials and murdered them, executed them.
Yes.
So I'm not in the business of pretending reality doesn't exist.
You know, you are becoming my favorite person.
Thank you, God.
I have not heard, and you can imagine, I talk to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I've not heard one person bring that up. Mm. And if you go back to episodes, kind of slid it in there in certain questions about wondering, are political officials really now understanding that their life is on the line, and that when you're going up for office, that you can die for this. So it's not.
I'm doing it on purpose.
Thank you, and that's what we need is people that have an understanding that my life has to be given for something bigger if I'm going to step up and represent the people. Right. So I'm like so appreciative that you keep those individuals that lost their lives in your mind, because I mean,
absolutely,
we're just talking about Charlie Kirk.
Ooh, do not get me started. Oh boy.
If Jax for District 5 County Commissioner could leave the people with a message, what would it be?
I love that. I do have my own podcast, so not to plug myself, but technically I'm plugging myself. So for folks who were interested in hearing more about this case with the ACLU, that's what the show is about. It's called Justice with Jax, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you want. I would tell them what I tell them on the show, which is ask yourself 2 questions. 1, how are you being the change you want to see in the world today? And 2, who is telling your story? There we go.
If I add anything to it, what are you doing to catch a charge for righteousness? No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Uh-oh, now we are going to have the Joint Terrorism Task Force back. That's okay. I already met them once.
And again, like I said,
well, keep in mind those charges can be very minor, by the way. They can be just about anything they want them to be. Obstruction.
And when you get in there, they can lose. It can be hard to be found. So, but that's the thing that I love about you is the seriousness in which you address things, but you give off the sense of joy that it's going to be all right.
Yes, that is the healing that I hope to contribute if I can, if I may be so bold as to, say that I could contribute in that particular way, because we've touched on it. We've talked about the pain that I can't fail to recognize when I'm asking for this responsibility, and I think that's part of what makes me different, because I'm not going to run away from that. And I don't make false promises, right? And also, we talked about the joy and how that is a form of resistance. And I think Black and Brown community, I mean, it's in our blood. We generationally have been laughing to keep from crying for years and centuries and eons and so on.
And so that's why I'm just like, hey, we were put here for that reason. There are good people out there that were put here to fight, and it's for them to fight the good fight. That being said, I just want to say thank you again. I'm like,
thank you, my friend.
Whenever you just want to shoot,
we're gonna chill. Okay, good. We're gonna have another podcast then. It's the whole good thing.
I could go on for days, but Zach, you have your work cut out for you. Jax, thank you. I hope to just get 2 minutes with you before you leave.
Definitely.
But make sure you like and follow us, the Concerned Citizen Podcast. And just like Jax for Justice, Season 3 will be on all of those great platforms where you can find us. Most importantly, DM me if you want to be on here. But it's all about giving the people the opportunity to A, speak to their concerns, and B, it gives the American people an opportunity to see themselves and not hear about what the American people are thinking or going through, but hear it from themselves or for themselves. So,
well done, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right.
Delightful.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Concerned Citizens Podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe and like button below. Follow us on Facebook on our Facebook group page, the Concerned Citizens Podcast. This is a place where you can meet other like-minded individuals, interact with guests, and request your spot to be on the show. Remember, the Concerned Citizens Podcast is a platform that gives you, the citizen, the freedom to speak to your concerns. Let's go. God bless.